Oh, hello, Dotman. How you doing, buddy? You caught me with my proverbial pants down, but give me a second. I'm gonna get the music rolling here. I hope you're doing well today, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Haven't even got all the social media posts up. I'm running a little bit late. Ain't gonna lie. I hope you're doing well today. I'm doing all right. We'll talk more once we're live, but yeah, I do hope you're doing well, friend. That was very, very raspberry. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I thought that was a quiet one. I don't have anything to do with herbs, but I don't know if I want that to be a counter track on stream. Holy goodness, I'm tired. I've been up since 1 a.m. All right, that's 1 a.m. American time, my time, EST. I went in and worked a 12-hour day today. So I'm gonna try to channel this energy for you all. Goodness. Finish up setting my PC? No, thank you. As per usual, again, I'll get into it once we're actually like live, but kind of not sure what I want. You mean like AR, as in like assault rifle? I'm sorry, it's a Halo term. Forgive me. If you mean AR, what, you want me to go like ara? Because like first off, you'd have to redeem it, and secondly, I just said ara for free. Me do a redeem. There. You lovely people. You know what I should do is I should see if I can make something for my VTuber where it's like a pen and paper. Nah, the blasters. Oh, so it's like Soldier in Team Fortress 2, right? Pretty easy, pretty cheesy, pretty standard run of the mill. Is what? I'd mean it. I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm terrible with projectile weapons. I think it's because I have such a terrible depth perception in video games. Like, I was really, really good at one time with like the Halo Reach grenade launcher, but not because I could like land shots with it, but because I was good at doing short range bursts. So like the Halo Reach grenade launcher had a charged EMP feature where if you held down the trigger as you shot, it would make the round into an EMP round. So you could like basically short range people with a EMP blast and then follow up with like a bullet from any other gun and basically kill them. So I got really, really good at doing that. But distance, I never had distance with it. I was very much close range, close and personal kind of guy with it. But that's probably enough yapping for me. Also picked up some magic cards today. So, you guys will get a laugh out of this. So, I went to bed early. Maybe I should save it when we're actually live. I don't know. But yeah, I got a story to tell you guys. So, I'll save it when we're live. Yeah. Well, yeah, I hope you two are having a good day. I don't know if you actually answered or not. I don't see that you answered. But, yeah. Let's see here, how close are we to the ad? I like getting the transition from starting soon screen to when the ad plays. So it's like kind of covered up by the fact that we're going live. Speak of the devil, and it shall appear. Just load right. So that way, then it's like you guys technically aren't missing much when it does come through. But yeah, it's just one of those things I want to like be fair for y'all. Discord server's coming along. At this rate, we should be ready to go by my birthday. I think I'm gonna launch it that Saturday. Because I'm off for Juneteenth. So like if we want, we can start streaming from like Thursday on through. But I definitely think I'm gonna have it go live by my birthday. I should have everything ready to go for it by then, and my other friends who are already in the server, they'll be aware that I'm making it into it, so if they don't want to be a part of the server, they can leave. You know, I don't want to, like, drive them up a wall either about it. It will be... the invite, I will want it to be through... not like an automatic one that you can just, like, pin through Firebot here, but I want to have it where it's, like, I directly invite you, because then I can, like, verify. At least until we get bigger, like, as a community, and then I'll worry about actually going through and setting up for just public access, so to speak. I want to have a way where it's like safe for you guys, because realistically you're the ones that it matters for, more so than me. Because ideally, hello, it's me. Ideally, it's ready for, you know, you guys, you have a way to get like notified when I go live outside of just Twitch, because Twitch doesn't always send notifications, or through other Discord servers, or through like my social media posts, because you guys shouldn't have to like rely on that, especially if you're like on a computer versus like on your phone. Yeah. Anyways, we're doing some more writing today because I have like little to no energy, but not in the sense of like little to no energy where I can't write, but more so I'm just very, very exhausted. I've been up since 1 a.m. I shared that earlier. I went to bed at like 5 o'clock yesterday evening. Was it 5 o'clock? I don't even remember. What time did I go to bed by? It was around 5 o'clock. Yeah. So I went to bed around 5 o'clock. It's fine. I just refreshed 25. I mean, Dotmit, I hope you don't have to do that, but I appreciate you being so willing to stick around. What I might do in the future is kind of do like a pre-lobby live thing for my Twitch, because I do know that if my Firebot is active before I go live, that means you guys can actually mess around in chat before we're like truly live. So, I don't know what I'll have tied to that, but I think it'll be a fun way for people to engage. Soup, you'll be happy to know I have not figured out how to do pickpocketing yet. I think it might be something where it's, whoa, there's a heist already going. Or what was I saying? Oh, I haven't figured out how to do the pickpocket command. I think it might be done in a different way, but I'd have to figure out how to code something like a heist, because what I might make it do is actually pick from a random person versus a person specifically. But it has to be somebody active in chat, so I don't know how to do that where it's like fair and safe for everyone, because like obviously not everybody has a ton of credits. Screw it, I'll join the heist. See how we do. Anyways, where we left off in the writing here is we were working on the fight. I feel like we got a lot of good stuff started. I feel like the fight is going pretty well. Dot, I don't remember. Were you here for the... Were you here for this? Can't remember. My memory is also shite. Basically, I went to bed around 5, 6, slept for like 2 hours, woke up, because I forgot to turn my phone off, or like have my phone on like silent. So my mom accidentally woke me up. You weren't here? Okay. I'll read over this before we start though, so I'll roll it up a little bit. Little spoilers for you. But Mom was making plans for this weekend because it's Memorial Day for us, Americans. So she was like, "Hey, are we wanting to do something?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I know I was tired because I was going to send 2 text messages and I only sent 1. So ended up sending out the other text message. And one of the things I do to help with my migraines and sleep is I take magnesium. So I was like, well, I'm awake now. I might as well take some magnesium to help me tire back out and go back to sleep. So I took some magnesium and I was probably up still till like 9. Ouch, that bites, soup dog. So I'm like, all right, well, now I'm really going to need some help getting to sleep. So then I took some melatonin and didn't fall asleep till about 10. And then I woke up because my fan broke. No, you're fine, soup dog. There's no worries. There's no worries. You can multitask. But no, I'm just telling my story for today. So my fan broke, and I used my fan to help not only keep myself cool in my bedroom, but it helps me sleep because it's just like ambient noise to help with the tinnitus, which is the ringing in your ears, son. Oh, that's a game we should play on stream, is Titanfall. I'm a moron. That would be a fun game to play on stream. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know if we'll do that tomorrow. I'll keep you guys posted. Hey, look at us. And me and Dot coming on top. Yeah, we'll probably do a Titanfall 2 playthrough here soon. But yeah, so my fan broke, woke me up, and then I didn't fall asleep again until like 11 after that, because I was like, it's gonna be hot in my room. The air, while I do have AC in this apartment, not the greatest, especially by the bedroom, because there's no fan to help circulate air around. Like, it doesn't have a ceiling fan, so I have to have like an oscillating fan to help with that. But anyways, so ended up putting a phone on my phone. I put like a ceiling fan. Goodness, I'm so sorry. Yawn. I put a ceiling fan noise video on, and then YouTube crashed. I couldn't get YouTube to load, so I was sitting there in utter silence with my ears ringing, trying to go to sleep. So then I eventually did fall asleep around 11:30, and then had to wake up at 1. So I'm on like 4-ish hours of sleep right now. So we'll see how this goes today. But for those who weren't there, with my little story aside, work was also really, really interesting too. I trained somebody on 3rd shift when I was there for 4 hours, which is fun. I do both love and hate days where I train, because the biggest problem I have is like sometimes when I am training, it makes the day go by pretty slow because I'm not listening to music, and then I talk a lot, so my voice gets a little harsh. So like right now, my voice is nearly shot. You might not be able to hear it, but I can feel it in like my sinuses and by the back of my throat. I got a little itch. And we've been having work-related issues with a coworker. I'm not going to dive into details because we're working on it right now, so I don't want to like sit there and be like, "Oh my god, what I did there." So, but yeah, there's been some unfortunate work drama going on because of a certain individual. So, it's getting addressed, but it is very, very tiring and very, very taxing, and I am about done with it. So, see how tomorrow goes. But anyways, I don't think that's true. And I don't know anything about Homestuck. I just know that people go absolutely insane for some of the trolls. So yeah. So, for those who missed it, I'm gonna lower the music a little bit. Understandably so. I'm assuming that's in regards to the comment about trolls. Yeah, anyways. So, I'm going to read through what we got so far, and then if I see anything that sounds wrong, I'll fix it, like I usually do. We got like 3 pages here. Which is pretty good, not going to lie. Oh, we're actually at like 4 pages. No, we are not at 4 pages. Anyways, let me read this. Trying to figure out where we were at. I forgot to put a page break in where we were at. But anyways, as the ambient noise of the engines hummed in Dakota's ears, the postman ran through the myriad of outcomes of how this could go down with whatever this enemy was. Main base had not updated him on what the other postmen were dealing with themselves. Should be nor, right? Nor if they had... Hold on, let me reread this. Main base had not updated him on what the other postmen were dealing with themselves, or if they had any confirmation what the target actually was. That sounds wrong. Main base had not updated him. Maybe it's because I'm tired. Main base had not updated him on what the other postmen were dealing with themselves, or if they had any confirmation about what the target actually was. No updates if it was a lich, a necromancer, or anything like it. He continued to coax the Omni vehicle to go faster as it zipped through the air. Dakota began pushing these concerns down to the back of his mind as he focused on getting to target. He had to get to them, but first, before he could worry about how to take them down. You can't defeat your enemy without knowing what they are first. After all, you'll have strengths and weaknesses that we need to account for. Dakota normally wasn't one to be so concerned with the target's unknown strengths and weaknesses, though. There wasn't much he couldn't take down alone, yet something about this mission seemed to make him take a pause. Normally, anything that could do this was stated out as soon as the call to action was given, allowing each postman time to prepare for the fight ahead. This didn't happen this time. Dakota was surely confident in his combat prowess, but he had his doubts. Thankfully, he had Eerie accompanying him. His mission. And out of every other postman he knew, she was by far one of the most capable. She never seemed to fail a mission, although her rating still stayed very low in the public's eye. Dakota always found it odd, but maybe she wasn't much of a people person. Oftentimes, she was sent on more specialized missions, handpicked by the higher positions in the order to deal with. Eerie had a very particular set of skills that often went hand in hand with death. It didn't take long for Dakota to eventually catch up to the target, as the glowing crimson-colored cloud surrounding them made it rather easy to see them in the night sky. Postman growled softly as he slowly began to piece together what he would be fighting. Crimson Cloud was the first giveaway. He wished he had some blessed munitions on him, as there was only one thing he knew for sure with that kind of power: a vampire. He readied himself to go out into the night. His vehicle began to confirm his knowledge, not by its own volition, but by the communicator flaring up. It was a postman on the site of where the fire was, calling out to main base about the situation groundside. HQ, be aware. Fire is being put out. However, contagion confirmed. Civilians in sector have been compromised. Multiple deaths. Outbreak to be vampiric. We can try to contain and knock out targets before vampiric outbreak spreads. However, we do not have the munitions available to do safe containment at full capacity. Orders. Dakota's heart sank. There was only one order he wished he never had to hear, so he shut off his communicator not to hear what would become of those infected. He couldn't stand that level of failure. Grimacing with rage, he opened his vehicle up, drawing his rifle as the shifting magic began to work, opening the canopy to allow Dakota to stand up and get ready to take aim onto the vampire. That is when he saw it did in fact have a hostage. The hostage was a younger-looking person, maybe in their early 20s at the oldest. He couldn't quite tell as the crimson energy flowing out from their mouth and eyes began to coalesce around the vampire. The victim was clearly knocked out from the vitality leaving them and being consumed by the vampire. He had to act fast. Holstering his weapons... Nicely done, Soup Dog. Holstering his weapons and running his watch for 2 spells, he leapt out of his vehicle. The vehicle shifted back to close and disappeared, vanishing into invisibility as the postman raced towards his target. The spells he channeled were that of speed and omni movement, giving him near full control in the night air as he flew towards his target. Should be towards. target. Fortunately, the vampire heard or sensed him and turned towards Dakota suddenly, ceasing the flow of magic and tossing the body aside. The body disintegrated into ash and dust as the vampire finished its meal. That is when Dakota noticed his outfit, and that's when all the anger and rage boiling inside Dakota spilled over. The wolfen postman drew out his pistol and began to fire upon the vampire. The vampire's garb was of a very similar nature to what Dakota was wearing, except it was tattered, worn, damaged, and covered in vitality wasted. The vampire's magical cloud began to dissipate as the rounds of magic began to pepper into him. However, it became clear to Dakota that this wasn't just any regular vampire, as even the magical nature of the bullets would have staggered him if he was just a regular one. Regular vampire. Regular one. Regular vampire. Magic news staggered for regular vampire. I don't like it that it repeats. I'm gonna put one here. It was a postman. They had just doomed so many people. Dakota didn't want to believe who it was. He heard of this postman's prowess and knew what they were capable of. No one had seen them in months. Dakota assumed they were in deep cover or something. He had heard rumors of them possibly being dead or worse. I guess it was the worst outcome then. The wolven postman pressed on, naively presuming that the postman was an unlucky victim and not doing this intentionally or of his own volition. As he closed the gap, the other laughed harshly and channeled a dark energy blast. Dakota barely had time to dodge it. Dodge it. I think we just need dodge it there. Dodge it. It was even worse. Much worse. They weren't infected by a vampire. They were the vampire. This made dealing with them all the more terrifying. Dakota yelled out his target's name. Reagan! As he did, the gap finally closed. They collided in air, the impact stunning the vampire. That allowed Dakota to catch Reagan by his head. Clawed hands went for his wrists as the wolf. I'm really using Wolven Postman too much. Dakota began to somersault in the air before letting go, flinging the vampire towards one of the many unfinished buildings in this construction zone. He had to deal massive damage to Reagan in sudden bursts, as he knew the tattooed spells etched into his body would only be overloaded in such a way. He followed in as he needed to land before he deactivated his Omni movement spell so he wouldn't crash down at the building as well. As he flew downwards, Reagan impacted on the top concrete floor of the building, cracking the dried cement as he struggled to get back to his feet. But landed a few feet away and fired at the fallen man with magic. We're into the clip drive before writing another 2 slot in to resume. Weapon. Resume his barrage. Reagan, you monster! What have you done? Dakota cried out as he felt his own heart pounding harshly in his chest. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get up, began to feel the round. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get up, began feeling the rounds impact his weakened shielding spell as he wiped the blood from his mouth. The vampire coughed. Continued to stand back up in defiance of Dakota's onslaught. It was clear to him that this was not to be a capture mission, but an execution. The vampire winced as rounds began to hinder him, making him draw his own weapon to fight back against Dakota. From the side of his tattered coat, he pulled out a heavy and massively bladed revolver. It shimmered slightly in the pale moon's light as dark energy flowed down the length of the barrel. Dakota, not wanting to take a shot from a large magical hand cannon, dove behind a pillar. Checking his reserves, Dakota launched back out and took aim at where Reagan was, only for him not to be there, only to see the vampire directly on top of him. Dakota barely had time to block the oncoming assault as his pistol was shredded due to the magic in those crimson glowing claws. Postman had called forth a shield of energy to protect him as he staggered back, doing his best to parry and block the flurry of attacks as his watch continued to hold up the shield. Regan knew that shield would be hard to get through normally, so he lunged off of Dakota's chest by grabbing onto the postman's arm, pulling him in close, bringing his booted feet up to the other's chest and kicking off, sending the bounty hunter back away from him. As he was midair, flipping backwards, he sent out a beam of orange magic. A dark fire chain was sent out to ensnare Dakota. As he was caught, Dakota tried to grab at the chain before Regan whipped him back around and sent him crashing into the concrete floor. The impact left Dakota winded as his shield broke. He slowly got up, but as he found his footing, a round impacted near his feet, shattering the floor the rest of the way as he fell through. He attempted to grab onto. Attempted to take hold of the floor. Let's try that. Take hold of the floor as it crumbled away, taking him and Regan down together. The fight. Alright, and that's where I was at. And then I wrote the paragraph that's going to introduce Erie and what she's doing. The fight continued outside the gaze of their onlooker. Little did either of them know, a hooded figure was watching from a nearby unfinished building. Eyes focused in through a shimmering pair of binoculars as the two fought on. The glowing eyes behind the lenses watched closely as these two fought, studying the movements of both of them as time seemed to ignore her. The fight paused as she made notes in her mind's eye. And that's where we're at. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to confuse myself, is I'm going to put a couple bits of a gap there. We're going to continue. But yeah, so that's where we're at so far with this. That's about 3 pages worth of this. It's crazy that this document is almost 6,000 words long. I'm also going to go back through the things that we had originally and make sure we got the notes that we wanted. Let's go ahead and start here. The dust began to vampire. As the dust began to dissipate from the floor collapsing, Dakota slowly got up. His combat visor flipped back over his face to help aid him in the limited vision space he occupied with him. Coughed. Willing. Dust out his lungs as the air tasted of dirt, dust, and copper. Metallic taste fused. Dakota, kill, melt, moisture of blood. Oh, I'll join the heist. So spell heist wrong. Floor collapsing. I liked it how it was before. Floor collapsing. Dakota slowly got up. It is crazy that you're almost a third of the way to 1,100,000. No, I was gonna say that wrong. 1.1 million. Crazy to me, you're already that close. I guess it's not that much of a surprise. You can earn credits really, really stinking fast here. Dang, son. Full-blown jackpot right there. Alright, let me get back to work. As the dust began to dissipate from the floor collapsing, Dakota slowly got up. His combat visor flipped back over his face to help aid him in the limited vision space he occupied with him. He coughed, blowing the dust out of his lungs as the air tasted of dirt, dust, and copper. The metallic taste confused Dakota. He felt the thick moisture of blood dripping from his mouth. Wait. Now he... no, he nows. Now he knows. Exactly. I mean, at least you still made some credits off of that. Alright, great. Now he knows exactly where I am. As Dakota went for his rifle, he felt the air around him move suddenly. Saw a terrible glow of crimson as those claws slash at barely having time to react. Brought arms up. Pausing. Fallen postman. Through. Sure. Just me, baby. Causing the fallen postman to cut through the outer protections of the coat Dakota had on. Thankfully, Dakota knew a spell or two and cried out. Cried out in a guttural. Not guttural roar, in a dark growl. Move. Simple, one-worded. Those are spell worded, right? And caused Reagan to be flung away suddenly. Empire. Mist frustration as his hold was replaced by a gale force blast wind, sending him tumbling and over and Dakota rushed in to take advantage of the person to follow up with another. Weapons do little. Now was the time for pure dualistic. Yep. Not a deep grunt as we want to do this. Weapons would do little here. Now was the time for pure pugilistic skill. But a lot of deep grunt as he brought his foot there. Should be leg. Dropping. Way too many pieces. Savage. Heal. What is that kick called? The kick where you like bring your foot down on top of something. That's a hold on. I'm gonna Google search that real quick. Where's my browser? An axe kick? Hammer kick or dropping heel kick? I want to make sure. Oh. I know how to look up. Me. Did and can't believe this is the reference I'm doing. This is such a stupidly deep cut in the game. Oh, axe kicking. Yeah, so we'll call it an axe kick. I feel like that's fair. See, that's the kind of trivia I want to put in here. Now it's time for pure pugilistic skill. Dakota let up a deep grunt as he brought his leg to bear, dropping a savage axe kick. Axe kick down onto Reagan in his humbled and shoveled state. Shoveled, my bad. Dakota let out a deep grunt as he brought his leg to bear, dropping a savage axe kick, rushing in. Rushing in quickly, the wolven postman did his best to continue his blitz on the vampire. He let out a deep grunt as he brought his leg to bear, dropping a savage axe kick down onto Reagan, just tumbled into shovel state. Making the bounce off the concrete floor as Dakota spun about and roundhoused a brutal haymaker to the vampire's face. I love the idea. And this is just purely a me thing. I know it's like the most stupidest thing ever, but I really love it in anime, in movies, or whatever, where a fighter hits somebody so hard off of a very solid surface that they bounce. I don't know what it is, but it's even better if like it's followed up with like the impact hits where like the ground just shatters into cubes. Like the idea of just... So the freaking Dakota just sent Reagan blasting away with him with a power word command of move, which made Reagan tumble away. So as he's tumbling, Dakota blitzes him to catch back up to him, and then as he's like kind of like mid-flip and like just absolutely dazed from what just hit him, he gets a savage axe kick just dropped down onto his chest and then bounced up off the concrete below him into a roundhouse haymaker. So, like, not only did Dakota take the full time to do, like, a 360 spin, but as he was spinning, he charged up a haymaker and just decked Reagan in the face. I really love that. Besides, we gotta let Roy get a good couple licks in before he just gets absolutely dog-walked, so I feel like this is a good way to do it. Here we go. Let Duke on his browser by dropping Savage Kick onto Reagan's chest. His Postman. And no time to cover. A hit made vampire bounce up off the concrete floor into Dakota spinning about. Out and delivering a roundhoused brutal haymaker. Roundhoused and brutal haymaker to the vampire's face. Rage is the only thing exchanged now, between growls and hisses, between impacts of fists and feet. Dakota needed his watch to recharge faster if he wished to do any major and proper damage to Reagan. Rage was the only thing exchanged now, between growls and hisses, between impacts of fists and feet. Dakota needed his watch to recharge faster if he wished to do any major improper damage to best Reagan. He needed to keep him reeling in order to give him space to do so. Was a gambit between what little energy Dakota had left in his watch and what little. Oh, I said, would you totally get a Switch and play? I appreciate the offer, but if the only thing that kind of stinks about that is my Switch account, my Nintendo account, is linked to my sister's one. So if I get a new... Hello, Romulus. How you doing today, buddy? Thank you for interrupting my thought. If I do get one, I would have to make a new Nintendo account, so I'm not, like, accidentally taking my little sisters. Oh, goodness. Account. But I'm doing well. As well as I can be for how exhausted I am. We talked about it briefly at the beginning of the stream, but TLDR, I'm very tired. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. My fan broke last night. I worked 12 hours today. I've been up since 1, and I am very much over work drama. So, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well too today, friend. We are hoping, I'm hoping at least, we can finish off the fight between Reagan and Dakota, and then also maybe finish up the fight between Reagan and Erie to then end out the prologue and forward of the Arcane Chronicles, so we can actually properly start on chapter 1. We have added like one more page since. I'm trying to think about how I want to go about this. I'm really in love with this paragraph right here, because it's like this is a break in the paragraph, which is like, yeah, whatever, writing style, but it's like, I love the idea that because of Dakota knowing some spells, and he has power word command move, which he used to just send Reagan spiraling away from him, and he blitzes into Reagan mid-tumble. I'll just read it. As Dakota went for his rifle, he felt the air around him move suddenly and saw the terrible glow of Crimson as those claws slashed at him. Barely having time to react, he brought his arms up to deflect, causing the fallen postman to cut through the outer protections of the coat Dakota had on. Thankfully for him, Dakota knew a spell or two yet, and cried out in a dark growl, move. The simple one-worded command caused Reagan to be flung away suddenly. The vampire hissed in frustration as his hold was replaced by a gale-force blast of wind, sending him tumbling end over end as Dakota rushed in to follow up with another attack. Weapons would do little to help here. Now was the time for pure pugilistic skill. Rushing in quickly, the Woven Postman did his best to continue his blitz on the vampire. He allowed a deep grunt as he brought his leg to bear, dropping a savage axe kick down onto Reagan's chest, and is tumbled in disheveled state, giving the fallen postman no time to recover. Blow. I should probably say that. The blow. The kick. He'll drop. Drop. Giving the fallen postman no time to recover. The hit made the vampire bounce up off the concrete floor into Dakota, spinning about and delivering a roundhouse and brutal haymaker to the vampire's face, sending him once more tumbling away. Rage was the only thing exchanged now. Between the growls and hiss, between the impacts of fists and feet, Dakota needed his watch to recharge faster if he wished to do any major and proper damage to Best Reagan, and needed to keep him reeling in order to give himself the space to do so. It was a gambit between what little energy Dakota had left in his watch and what rage was boiling over in the combo-locked vampire. Because, like, the idea is like, yeah, we still want this to kind of be like we want it to feel like Dakota's getting the upper hand until Reagan just has enough, and then just dog walks Dakota. Because we need to kind of set up the level of power difference between the two, where it's like, yeah, the end of this blitz will lead to it being revealed that Dakota is a werewolf, more so than like just a dog demi-human, or like a wolf demi-human. He's an actual werewolf. So I want that reveal to happen, and then him just get dog-walked. Because once Reagan realizes that, oh, it's actually somebody I can't get anything out of, yeah, I'm gonna kill the motherfucker, you know? That's what the reaction I want to have happen. Where it's like, Dakota does it to kind of like give himself more power because like his watch isn't ready yet, but he needs to seal the deal so that he can kill Reagan properly. And as he goes to do so, that's when Reagan realizes like, oh, I can't drink this guy's blood, so I'm gonna kill him. And then before he can land the killing blow, that's when Erie sweeps in to save Dakota before he gets absolutely dog walked, or well, killed from his dog walking. Because dog walking somebody is also really, really funny, too, in this context. But yeah, so... Let's see here. And plus, it's like everybody likes a little bit of a fight, right? I think so. Fight continued outside the gaze of their own. I think that's a good break we can do. So let's put a break here. There. Can I put it here? No, I cannot. Ooh, South America. Womp. I continued outside the gaze of their omelet. I'll make sure this makes sense. As Dakota continued his desperate assault, the other shadow clad. I'll make that a lowercase t because I can spell great. We got another heist going? Maybe. I don't need it. As Dakota continued his desperate assault, the other shadow clad postman stepped out from her cover, finally melting away from shadows nearby building. Gaze back to the two. I'll do briefly away. Gaze briefly away from two fighting as she waited for a moment to strike. If I continued outside, probably don't need this line anymore. As good as that line is. Wanted turn her comms back on to here. Oh. Zone. But needed focus on her actual mission here. She wanted to turn back her comms on. She wanted to turn her comms back on to here. No, I want that to be to here. Screw you, Microsoft. Nicely done, Soup Dog. Winning some big buckaroos. I still can't believe you're over 1 million credits already. Dakota continued his desperate assault. The other shadow-clad postman stepped out from her cover, finally melting away from the shadows of the nearby unfinished building. Turning gaze briefly away from the two fighting, she waited for her moment to strike. She wanted to turn her comms back on to hear how the others were faring in the initial outbreak zone, but she needed to focus on her actual mission here. Or if she failed here, there would be no state future there. Right. I don't need this anymore either. As dropped. Dropped hood away from her. Man, I am doing such a great time today spelling, ain't I? Way. It's not where I clicked. Whatever. The other postman dropped her hood back away from her eyes. And she willed. Hearing. I have that literally written right there. Why am I struggling to spell binoculars? The other postman dropped her hood back away from her eyes as she wielded a shimmering pair of binoculars to help focus. Away. Surely, Yoda would. She focused in through the shimmering pair of binoculars to the glow. Faded glow of the cleaned. Glowing eyes behind the lenses watched closely before she turned back to her current objective. As these two fought, we studied. Let's go gambling! Studied the movements of both of them. Time seemed to ignore her. I paused as she made notes. Time seemed to ignore her. I pause. Gee. El Nino. That reminds me. Growing up, that was one of the phrases. Fun fact: it's remembering now. Oh no. Doesn't surprise me with how the world is. But no, growing up, when me and my brother learned what El Nino was, it ended up being kind of like an in-joke between us when like something big was going down. We'd be like let's say we were like chopping wood and we had like a big piece of wood to split. We'd be like El Nino, and then drop like the splitting maul on top of the log, just shatter it. So good, so many good memories. Dakota continued his desperate assault. The other shadow-clad postman stepped out from her cover, finally melting away from the shadows of the nearby unfinished building. Turning gaze briefly away from the two fighting as she waited for a moment to strike. She wanted to turn her comms back on to hear how the others were faring in the initial outbreak zone, but she needed to focus on her actual mission here. If she failed here, there'd be no safe future for their kind. The other postman dropped her hood back. I think that still works. She wielded a shimmering pair of binoculars to help her focus away from the fight. Surely Dakota could hold his own for a moment longer. She focused in through. I don't want that to be in through the shimmering pair of binoculars to the faded glow of the contained fire. The glowing eyes behind the lenses watched closely as she turned back to her current objective. As these two fought, she studied the movements of both of the other postmen. Time seemed to ignore her, letting the fight pause as she seemingly wished to study things in the fight. That's when she made the connection. Probably actually name her here. Erie made the connection. Reagan wasn't the only supernatural postman. Dakota was. Probably stop using as so much too to begin paragraphs. Dakota felt it first before he realized what truly happened. He growled a bit before feeling his fist being pushed back away from the body he'd been punching repeatedly into the cracked, broken support pillar behind Empire. Willed his arm to go forward, but could only feel his footing slide low. Yeah, I guess you don't like me putting unnecessary comments here, don't you? Well, if you feel his footing slide below, it seemed his luck was out. It says, watch, not charged. Suspicion into his free body. Add one option in this option. I got a quote I want to put here. Hold on. My first system, next option, so broken. My first system's so broken you cannot fathom it. They created me monsters. Birds trailed in the air. What is this? Too low. Answer. begin to grow. You fight for a system that is so broken you cannot fathom it. They created you. They created me. Words trailed in the air as Dakota's eyes began to glow behind his visor. 3, 2, on 1. The hair on his head began to grow out more wildly as his sleeveless arms torn and ripped from desperate clawings of spell and turned darker with gray and brown fur. Monsters, the both of us. Both of us. Expected not to give in to the primal needs we have. Crave the ending of life that these people are feel for us. Do not deny yourself your nature. Also, if you guys don't like blood, you might want to look away from her a minute, because this is about to get really bad. I want to make sure I put that out here before we, or we can just save it for later. We might save it for later. Because, I mean, he's about to get shot in the shoulder he stabbed in, so we'll probably get back to that. We'll get back to that. I think I put that S there that didn't need to be there. Where's this lay? Stars began to silently impact Reagan's. He looked up to Reagan standing over. He winced and tried to get up, only for the dark boot of the fallen postman to dig into his shoulder. Moving, Dakota gasped out noiselessly. He choked. The constant air in his lungs. I am no longer Reagan. You. Here on memories. Know me. Here. I love Destroyer's Invocation. So, if you don't know, this soundtrack from the Halo 2 soundtrack, the Mausoleum Suite, is dialogue recorded, or basically reversed, that is talking about, what is the quote? Sorry, we're on a tangent right now. What is the quote? The backwards audio in Oz. Cryptic Whisper, sorry. It is first messages. So the quote from the Destroyer's Invocation, the first movement of the screw off fandom, is the reverse part is, I have walked among men and angels for 3,000 years. Time has no end, no beginning, no purpose. I wander the earth seeking forgiveness for my horrible crimes against God and man. I live to see death and destruction, evil over the light. The light cannot be extinguished. I live in a prison of my own demise. I am lost in time. But yeah, that's what that reversed audio was, in case you were wondering. It's actually really cool how much stuff they've done with the Halo OST in regards to that. It's honestly part of the reason why I like that game so much is the music. Just an air left in this line. I'm no longer rigging to you. From here on out, your memories will be known to be by one name. Whoa! You spooked me, Dotmint. Okay, Dotmint, I'm sorry, man. Jeez, I won't share cool facts about Halo with you. Wombo combo. What? Why am I getting hit with a savage? Soup, what are you about to do? Soup, please. Wait, Druid is not a mage? I'm not... Brothers, I don't have the money for a Switch right now. What was a commander? How do I raise Druid's hand back? Why is this wanting to... But Reagan. Can't join you in Splatoon, guys. I'm sorry. I'm no longer Reagan to you. From here on out, your memories will know me by one name. I'm the Bloodsmith, the ruiner of all they hold dear. Before anything else could happen, another taste entered Dakota's taste of fear, rage, As if summoned out of thin air, the Bloodsmith barely had any time to even react as the force of an otherworldly nature collapsed onto him, sending him reeling away as the world around Dakota faded black once more. Going gray. Why did I make that reeling? I said reeling for a reason. Well, on Dakota faded black once more. Here you have now joined the fray. God, this is part of the mission too. This is in the Oracle when you're chasing the heretic leader down. Based on fear, no rage, no desperation, but ozone? Yeah, we'll fill in that messy part later. I kind of want to get to the part where Eerie now decides to actually do her job. But we're going to change POV here. Shadowy Master attack and gave no words, no warnings, just action. Pure, focused. Ooh. Well, we want you to split you. I get that, but I'm sorry. I can't afford it. Also, sorry for the loss of the heist, but I mean, you still have over 1 million credits, so I don't think it hurts you that much. I do like the perspective of him just being like, yeah, this dude's a mutt. I think that's really good. Knowing he put down the agency's best lapdog, I think that's also a really good line for him. It really sells the corny villain nature of the Bloodsmith. The shadowy mass that attacked him gave no words, no warnings, just action. Pure, focused, unadulterated action. The vampire tried his best to catch himself on the ground, only for the ground to suddenly be away from him as a blast of purple energy seeped into his palm and up through his arm, sending him directly upwards into waiting, shaping wheel. I mean, you could, but I would hate for you to do that, because I don't mean this to sound like I would never play it, but like, there's not many games on the Switch I'm interested in playing. I would play with friends, most definitely, yeah, if they had like an extra Switch and I could play Splatoon with them, but it wouldn't be a game, it wouldn't be something I would use often enough to justify buying it. That's why it's like, when I did have a Switch, it felt like the right thing to do to give it to my younger sister, because she really wanted to switch for Christmas, and I wasn't necessarily using it. The only thing I had to play on it was Smash Brothers. Don't get me wrong, I played a lot of Smash Brothers on it, but at the time I was wanting to downsize, and I knew that she wanted one, and I was like, well, I'll be an awesome big brother and give it to her for Christmas. So, Dupree. Really, he was? Huh, I didn't know that. Anyways, the shadowy mass that attacked him gave no words, no warnings, just pure action. I feel like we need another copy. Just pure action. Pure, focused, unadulterated action. Vampire tried his best to catch himself on the ground, only for the ground to suddenly be away from him as a blast of purple energy seeped into his palm and up through his arm, sending him directly upwards into the awaiting weapon of shaping steel that was there for him. And the figure holding weapon. Cold, calculated malice in her eyes. Alright, let me see here. Right. I feel like this is good for right now. I do want to kind of give a quick reread. A quick reread to make sure that everything still flows right. I want to put some page breaks in, so I'm going to do that real quick. Because those are also where I'll like put like dates and times and stuff in there. Like that, you know? Because again, the whole point of this story is like, yes, it is background knowledge for who Dakota is, the Twitch character. But it's also like, what the whole point of everything we've been writing is this stuff. So if we're going to like want to pursue the hobby in that regard, I want to make sure that this flows right. So starting from the beginning here, check something here real quick. Oh, I accidentally minus OBS. I need that up. Thank you. As the ambient noises of the engines hummed in Dakota's ears, the postman ran through the myriad of outcomes of how this could go down with whatever this enemy was. Main base had not updated him on what the other postmen were dealing with themselves, or if they had any confirmation about what the target actually was. No updates if it was a lich, a necromancer, or anything like it. He continued to coax the Omni vehicle to go faster as it zipped through the air. Dakota began pushing these concerns down into the back of his mind as he focused on getting to the target. He had to get to them first before he could worry about how to take them down. Can't defeat your enemy without knowing what they are first. After all, we all have strengths and weaknesses that need to be accounted for. Dakota wasn't one... Actually, you know what we should do? Hold on. Saying from his old mentor. Words. I think that would... Words flowing. His old mentor rang through his mind. Dakota normally wasn't one to be so concerned with the target's unknown strengths and weaknesses, though. There wasn't much he couldn't take down alone, yet something about this mission seemed to make him take pause. Normally, anything that could do this was stated out as soon as the call to action was given, allowing each postman time to prepare for the fight ahead. That didn't happen this time. Dakota was surely confident in his combat prowess, but had his doubts. Thankfully, he had Eerie accompanying him on this mission. Out of all. Maybe it's just all other postmen he knew. She was by far one of the most capable. She never seemed to fail a mission, although her rating still stayed very low in the public's eye. Dakota always found it odd Always found that odd. Maybe she wasn't much of a people person. Oftentimes, she was sent on more specialized missions, handpicked by the higher positions of the Order in the order to deal with. Fury had a very particular set of skills that often went hand in hand with death. It didn't take long for Dakota to eventually catch up to the target, as the glowing crimson cloud surrounding them made it rather easy to see them in the night sky. Postman growled softly as he slowly began to piece together what he would be fighting. The crimson cloud was the first giveaway. He wished he had some blessed munitions on him, as there was only one thing he knew of for sure with that kind of power: the vampire. As he readied himself to go out into the night, his vehicle began to confirm his knowledge, not by its own volition, but by the communicator flaring up. It was a postman on site of where the fire was, calling out to the main base.
Request confirmed.
Oh!
_mint demands credits, please.
Huh? So, if you didn't know, Dotman, the credits redeem is now 10k. So you got 10k credits there. Let's go gambling. As he readied himself to go out into the night, the vehicle began to confirm his knowledge, not by its own volition, but by the communicator flaring up. It was a postman on site of where the fire was, calling out to the main base about the situation groundside. HQ, be aware, fire is being put out. However, the contagion is confirmed. Civilians in sector have been compromised. Maybe we should say some civilians in sector have been compromised. Multiple death, outbreak to be vampiric. We can try to contain and knock out targets before vampiric outbreak spreads. However, we do not have the munitions available to do safe containment at full capacity. Orders. Dakota's heart sank. There was only one order he wished to never hear, so he shut off his communicator to not hear what would have become of those infected. He couldn't stand that level of failure. Grimacing with rage, he opened his vehicle up, drawing his rifle as the shifting magics began to work, opening the canopy to allow Dakota to stand up and get ready to take aim onto the vampire. As when he saw that it did in fact have a hostage. The hostage was a younger-looking person, maybe in their early 20s at the oldest. What he couldn't quite tell as the crimson energy flowing out from their mouth and eyes began to coalesce around the vampire. The victim was clearly knocked out from the vitality leaving them, being consumed by the vampire. He had to act fast. Holstering his weapons and readying his watch for 2 spells, he leapt out of his vehicle. The vehicle shifted back to close and disappeared, vanishing into invisibility as the postman raced towards his target. The spells he channeled were that of speed and omni-movement, giving him near full control in the night air as he flew towards his target. Unfortunately, the vampire heard or sensed him and turned towards Dakota suddenly, ceasing the flow of magic and tossing the body aside. The body disintegrated into ash and dust as the vampire finished his meal. You should say Dakota was too late. That is when Dakota noticed his outfit. It was that is when all the anger and rage boiling inside Dakota spilled over. The woven postman drew out his pistol and began to fire upon the vampire. The vampire's garb was that of? The vampire's garb was that of a similar nature. I think we can go with what's of. The vampire's garb was of a very similar nature to what Dakota was wearing, except it was tattered, worn, damaged, and covered in vitality wasted. The vampire's magical cloud began to dissipate as the rounds of magic peppered into him. However, it became clear to Dakota that this wasn't any regular vampire, as even the magical nature of the bullets would have staggered him if he was just a regular one. It was a postman. They had just doomed so many people. Dakota didn't want to believe it was. Oh, Kasuna! You booger. Well, I do appreciate the posture reset and the hydrate and the stretch. But you're gonna make me do that stuff before I even get up from my chair. Alright, let me I'm gonna do this backwards from what you requested, so give me a second. Care package. And don't let the enemy team take it. But how you doing, bud? I'm gonna ask that. I don't care. Fine! I'll be back in 30 seconds. Sure. Can't believe you do this to me. The whole point of fetch is for me to be here, and you're doing it as I'm getting up. I'm glad you're doing all right. But yeah, let me go walk. All right. I'll get your 30 seconds, okay? I can't believe you. I don't want to. I can't believe you. This is on track for what I have no idea if you need. But I want to let you know. I am not disappointed. Walk for about 3 seconds. Or continue writing and reading through prologue and forward. That's fine. That's fine. Whatever. Whatever, game. There. Your 30-second walk. But no, I am glad you're doing all right. Good night. Good grief. Oh, Lord alive. I've been up for way too long. But no, I am glad you're doing all right. Where were we? Dakota didn't want to believe who it was. He heard of this postman's prowess and knew what they were capable of. Can it be cold again, please? I wholeheartedly agree with you on that, Kasuna. It is way too warm already. I mean, it's May, so it makes sense that it's finally happening, but it's also like, brother, it's only May. Where were we? Yes. Dakota didn't want to believe who it was. He heard of this postman's prowess and knew what they were capable of. No one had seen them in months. Dakota, the Master of Shadows. No, Dakota assumed they were in deep cover or something. He heard rumors of them possibly being dead or worse. Yes, it was the worst outcome then. The Wolven postman pressed on, naively presuming that the postman was an unlucky victim and not doing this intentionally or of his own volition. As he closed the gap, the other laughed harshly and channeled a dark energy blast. Dakota barely had time to dodge it. It was even worse. Much worse. They weren't infected by a vampire, they were the vampire. This made dealing with them all the more terrifying. Dakota yelled out his target's name. Reagan! As he did, the gap finally closed. They collided in air, the impact stunning the vampire. That allowed Dakota to catch Reagan by his head. Maybe it's because it's thinking the his is... Oh, no. Oh. Maybe I should rewrite this. As they collided in air, the impact stunned... Vampire. Stunned the vampire. Allowing Dakota to catch Reagan by his head. Odd hands went for his wrist as Dakota began to somersault in the air before letting go and flinging the vampire towards one of the many unfinished buildings in this construction zone. He had to deal massive damage to Reagan in sudden bursts, as he knew the tattooed spells etched into his body would only be overloaded in such a way. He followed in as he needed to land before deactivating his Omni movement cell so he wouldn't crash down into the building as well. As he flew downwards, Reagan impacted on the top concrete floor of the building, cracking the dried cement. He struggled to get back to his feet. Dakota landed a few feet away and fired at the fallen postman with his magic pistol, running the clip dry before readying another to slot in. Another one. Run. His magic pistol, running the clip dry before readying another. Other clip to slot in the weapon. Resume his barrage. Reagan, you monster! What have you done? Dakota cried out as he felt his own heart pounding harshly in his chest. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get up, began... heist time. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get back up, began feeling the rounds impacting head break. Where was I? I keep getting distracted by myself. Reagan, who was starting to slowly get up, began feeling the rounds impacting his weakened shielding spell as he wiped the blood from his mouth. Vampire coughed and continued to stand back up in defiance of Dakota's onslaught. It was clear to him that this was not meant to be a capture mission. Wait. It was clear to him that this was not to be a capture, meant to be. Maybe I should put meant. A capture mission, but an execution. Vampire winced as the rounds began to hinder him, making him draw his own weapon to fight back against Dakota. From the side of his tattered coat, he pulled out a heavy and massively bladed revolver. It shimmered slightly in the pale moon's light. Oh no. Ow! Doing all this stuff to me and I can't fight back. Mad about it. Shimmered slightly in the pale moon's light as dark energy flowed down the length of the barrel. Dakota, not wanting to take a shot from a large magical hand cannon, dove behind a pillar. Checking his reserves, Dakota launched back out and took aim at where Reagan was, only for him not to be there, only to see the vampire directly on top of him. Dakota barely had time to block the oncoming assault as his pistol was shredded due to the magic in those crimson glowing claws. Postman called forth a shield of energy to protect him as he staggered back, doing his best to parry and block the flurry of attacks as his watch continued to hold up the shield. Reagan knew that shield would be hard to get through normally, so he lunged off of Dakota's chest. So he backed, so he changed tactics. He lunged off of Dakota's chest by grabbing onto the postman's arms, pulling him in close, bringing his booted feet up to the other's chest and kicking off, sending the bounty hunter back away from him. As he was midair, as Reagan. Maybe we should actually specify it's Reagan now. Was mid-air flipping backwards, he sent out a beam of orange magic. A dark fire chain was sent out to ensnare Dakota. As he was caught, Dakota tried to grab the chain before Reagan whipped him back around and sent him crashing into the concrete flooring. The impact left Dakota winded as his shield broke. He slowly tried to get up, but as soon as he found his footing, a round impacted near his feet, shattering the floor the rest of the way as he fell through. He attempted to take a hold of the floor as it crumbled away, taking him and Reagan down together. As the dust began to dissipate from the floor, collapsing, Dakota slowly got up. His combat visor flipped back over his face to help aid him in the limited vision space occupied with the vampire. He coughed, blowing the dust out of his lungs as the air tasted of dirt, dust, and copper. Metallic taste confused Dakota until he felt the thick moisture of blood dripping from his mouth. Right. Now he knows exactly where I am. As Dakota went for his rifle, he felt the air around him suddenly move and saw the terrible glow of crimson as those claws slashed out. Barely having time to react, he brought up his arms to deflect, causing the fallen postman to cut through the outer protection of the coat Dakota had on. Thankfully for him, Dakota knew a spell or two yet. Thunder. Dakota knew a spell or two yet and cried out in a dark growl. A simple one-worded command caused Reagan to be flung away suddenly. The vampire hissed in frustration as his hold was replaced by a gale-force blast of wind, sending him tumbling end over end. Dakota rushed in to follow up with another attack. Weapons would do little help here. Now was the time for pure pugilistic skill. Rushing in, the Wolfen Postman did his best to continue his blitz on the vampire. Unless it's been. Should probably actually go through and make sure these are all properly capitalized. Comes up with this what? What? Jerry? Why are you saying Jerry? There was Forrest. Thomas Crabber? Thomas Crapper? Who comes up with this? What are you talking about? What? Oh, Thomas Crapper. that question. I'm sitting there still stunned about where Thomas Crapper came from. Little did I know it was Dotman's trivia question. Oh, Lord alive. I was not ready for today. Here. Rushing in quickly, the Wolfen Postmaster did his best to continue his blitz on the vampire, letting out a deep grunt as brought his leg to bear, dropping a savage axe kick down onto Regan's chest in his tumbled and disheveled state. The blow of the heel, that shouldn't be capitalized. Blow of the heel drop, giving the fallen postman no time to recover. The hit made the vampire bounce up off the concrete floor into Dakota spinning about. The hit made the vampire bounce up off the concrete floor into Dakota spinning about and delivering a roundhouse and brutal haymaker to the vampire's face, sending him once more tumbling away. Rage was the only thing exchanged now. Between growls and hisses, between impacts of fists and feet, Dakota needed his watch to recharge faster if he wished to do any major improper damage to best Regan. But he needed to keep him reeling in order to give himself the space to do so. It was a gambit between what little energy Dakota had left in his watch and what rage was boiling over in the combo-locked vampire. As Dakota continued his desperate assault, the other shadow-clad postman stepped out from cover, finally melting away from the shadows of the nearby unfinished building. Turning her gaze briefly away from the two fighting, she waited for a moment to strike. She wanted to turn her comms back on to hear how the others were faring in this initial outbreak zone, but she needed her to focus on her actual mission here, for if she failed here, there would be no safe future for their kind. The other postman dropped her hood back away from her eyes as she wielded a shimmering pair of binoculars to help her focus away from the fight. Surely Dakota would hold his own for a moment. She focused in through the shimmering pair of binoculars into the faded glow that contained fire. The glowing eyes behind the lenses watched closely as she turned back to her current objective. As these two fought, she studied the movements of both of the other postmen. Time seemed to ignore her, letting the fight pause as she seemingly wished to study things in the fight. That is when Eerie made the connection. Regan wasn't the only supernatural postman. Dakota was. Dakota felt it first before he realized what truly happened. He growled a bit as Why did I do as? He growled a bit before feeling his fist being pushed back away from the body he had been punching repeatedly into the cracked and broken support pillar behind the vampire. He willed his arm to go forward, but could only feel his footing slide below him. It seemed his luck was running out, and his watch was not recharged yet. Desperation began to sink into his weary body. He had one option left. He didn't like this option. He didn't want to use this trump card. Sadly, though, Regan knew this trump card. You fight for a system that is so broken you cannot fathom it, the vampire hissed, pushing Dakota back as the terrible glow of Regan's eyes pierced into Dakota's soul. They created you. They created me. The worlds trailed in the air as Dakota's eyes began to glow behind his visor. The hair on his head began to grow more wildly. Grow longer. Maybe we should just do longer. Wildly makes it feel like it's a Super Saiyan transformation, and that is not what this is. It's his sleeveless arms, his coat arms torn and ripped from the desperate clawings of the vampire, began to turn darker with gray and brown fur. Monsters, the both of us. Both of us, and expected us not to give in to the primal needs we have. We crave the ending of life. These people are fuel for us. Don't deny yourself your nature. As if it was a command, Dakota howled in rage and drew his capture hand back to headbutt Regan. But that is when he felt the sharp pain digging into his other shoulder, the blade from the revolver. And we go into his dog walking, where he gets absolutely bodied by Regan, but we'll do that later, because I want to make sure I write it out well. So, slight jump cut. As the stars began to subside from the impact, he looked up to Regan standing over him. He winced and tried to get up, only for the dark boot of the fallen postman to dig into his shoulder wound, leaving Dakota to gasp out noiselessly as he choked on the non-existent air left in his lung. I am no longer Regan to you. From here on out, your memories will know me by one name. I am the Bloodsmith, the ruiner of all they hold dear. But before anything else can happen, another taste entered Dakota's mouth. But a taste not of fear, nor rage, nor desperation, but of ozone? As if summoned out of thin air, the Bloodsmith had barely any time to even react as a force of some other worldly nature collapsed onto him, sending him reeling away as the world around Dakota faded to black once more. Eerie had now joined the fray. Oh no! Ouch! Throwing all these tennis balls at me. Ooh, Ooh, that's a good question. Which studio animated Afro Samurai? Oh, it was Gunzo. I would not have gotten that. Full disclosure, I would have guessed Kyoto. Shows how much anime I know of. The Bloodsmith knew his victory was at hand. He had that mutt right below his heel. He wanted to savor his foe's end and relish in the delight it would bring him, knowing he put down the agency's best lapdog. Now that was taken from him. The shadowy mass that attacked him gave no words, no warnings, just action. Pure, focused, unadulterated action. The vampire tried his best to catch himself on the ground, only for the ground to suddenly be away from him as a blast of purple energy seeped into his palm and up through his arm, sent him directly upwards into the waiting weapon of shaping steel that was there for him, and the figure holding the weapon with cold, calculated malice in her eyes. There had only been one other time in Reagan's life where he felt this fear in his heart. This wasn't something he ever felt. It was something he ever should have been never. Freaking. I really do not like using Microsoft Word. It was something he never felt he would feel again. Thought. Would feel again. Alright. We're at quarter till. Let's see here. How are we feeling about it so far, lads? How are we feeling about it? I'm gonna put a note here. Right out to the absolute. I feel like we're at a good spot as far as like the story stuff is concerned here. I'm gonna go back through here and make sure we're not missing any notes we wanted to add in. Oh, that's right. We did have this in here. We also changed this. And we did have this all written out differently, did we? Let's see here. Black Hammer. What dimension does Colonel Will travel through? Black Hammer? Oof. Soup Dog, have you won a heist recently? Arizona. I wouldn't know that. Why are you gonna bite me? What did I do to you? Here's what we're gonna do. Where is the... So you threw your humanity away for that. Focus on the report. Radiant spell. We're gonna put this in the part where he gets dog walked. Before. Threw your humanity away for that. Or before using radiant spell, burning off his glove in the process. Well, connects with Reagan, causing the vampire to loosen his grasp. Found advances of spark, haymakers, kicks. Howls in pain but screaming enough. Savagely attacked. Wasn't even heard from the bullets delivered by the word. Then continue. Alright, so you say everything, but, like, brother, it's not my fault that you typed in the heist command to lose your money. That's on you, Mr. Millionaire. That ain't on me. Is this the opening? It's Data Hive, okay. It is from the Halo 3 ODST soundtrack. We got what, 7? Got a little bit of time. I'm gonna bite you. Well, I'm gonna bite you back. So how about them apples? Huh? Specific command. So you threw away your humanity for that. Go to chokes out of or before using a radiant spell, burning off the spell. Loosen stress. Breathlessly, as he felt half his body shamble forward, up, off. Forward in defiance. Pull himself up. Pull himself to you lower back, heavily breathing. So you threw away your humanity for that. Dakota chokes out and retort before using radiant spell, burning up his glove in the process. Spell connects with Reagan. Chest. The vampire loosens his grasp on Dakota. Dakota presses his newfound advantage with barbaric one-handed haymakers and great heal. Halls and paper scrapes through him, but nothing. In blind rage. Delivered by the werewolf. Alright. Barbaric one-handed. So, why is it wanting this? What is your deal with this, huh? Why do you want that? So you're just dumb. Oh, is it because of the... Is it because of the... Oh, it's... What? Maybe he wants it... Threw away your humanity for that. Decided to blame everything on my controller no matter what I'm doing. That is the proper gamer way to handle things. An inescapable flurry of blows. As if he wasn't already hurt from the blows delivered by the werewolf. I really like that line. You are nothing but a mangy dog of the judges. Mangy dog. I do like dog. I feel like dog's a good fit there. Fit to serve a purpose and die like so many before you. The stars begin to subside from the impact. He looked up to Reagan standing over him. Winston tried to get a blank for the dark boot of the fallen postman. Dark boot, fallen postman, to dig into his shoulder roll. Dig to his shoulder roll. Even Dakota to gasp out noiselessly as he choked on the non-existent air left in his lungs. No longer Reagan to you. From here on out, your memories will know me by one name. I am the Bloodsmith, the ruiner of all they hold dear. That works because now we have a reason why he's saying that. Alright. I think with that, we'll let this last heist go through. I asked earlier, I don't know if you guys answered because I didn't see it, but how are we feeling about this writing right now? Feel like we've made good headway? So, Dakota began with a weakened snark. Throw your money for that? You likey? Okay. I think what I'll do is we'll probably do it next time, but I haven't decided how I want Reagan to just absolutely dog walk Dakota. Because I feel like it's one of those things where it's because the idea of the story is that Dakota needs to, like, fully believe in who he is himself and not just try to hide his true nature and still be, like, not beholden to what he is. Because going back to the whole Jared versus Dakota thing, because he still has parts of him that believes that he's just his normal self, you know, his Jared, he's not wanting to embrace his full werewolf side, you know, his lycanthropic side. So I feel like this is a good way for this fight to kind of bring that up, is where it's like, this has been a trump card that he's been wanting to use is his werewolf form, because what on earth can withstand a werewolf, right? Like, he hasn't gone up against something he hasn't been able to beat yet. And now he's fighting something that is absolutely dog-walking him and not being broke by the sheer overwhelming power that Dakota just has. And the reason why is because Reagan has embraced his vampiric side, but for pure selfish reasons, whereas eventually Dakota will embrace his werewolf heritage, curse, as a blessing, a power to help protect the ones he loves. So once that happens, and that also fits in with the whole cheesy narrative of being like some 80s action schlock. But if you guys have any other ideas, always feel free to let me know. I have a couple things I want to make sure I nail down in here, but I didn't really want to get into the whole dark and gloom bloodshed yet, because I do want it to feel not so much like I'm writing it out of enjoyment, but like out of, I want it to be written where it feels impactful and not just like, you know how, I don't know if you've watched Invincible, but a lot of criticism that show gets is like, it's just a gore fest for the sake of being a gore fest sometimes. And I don't want this to feel like that, because like, I want the violence to actually mean something in a fight, and I want it to have an impact, right? So I want it to have an impact where it's like, it's actually important that, yeah, Dakota gets dog walked here, because it will sell how much of a power gap there is between him and the Bloodsmith to when they eventually fight again. And then when they eventually fight again, nicely done, Soup Dog. Get it. But I feel like that's a good way to go about the story, to have this progression where it's like Dakota gets more comfortable with his powers. He gets to the point where he's trying to fight Reagan again. Reagan escapes because he realizes that Dakota's getting more and more reliant on, I mean, I'm not going to suck it. That's not what I like to do. Because the third plot that I want is Jared comes to grips with the fact that he is a werewolf and he should be using his powers as a part of who he is, leading into the next fight with Reagan, where Reagan escapes, realizing that Jared is starting to embrace his werewolf nature and hopes to turn him to the dark side, leaving him and Jared at an impasse where the two can't finish their fight because something gets between them, to then lead to the final confrontation where Jared and Reagan score up again, and it is the vampire lord Dracula versus like freaking the original werewolf, the Beast of Javeldon, So I want it to build up to that and have it where the fight between the two feels like it earns how that final fight will go, right? And then, obviously, because Dakota's still good-natured, I won't spoil how the fight goes, but I'll kind of give you a hint where it's like, it's one of those things where you're just like, man, that's a good fight. And I understand why things went the way they did. But I think with that, I think that's all we're going to write for today. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. I'm sorry if I was kind of like low energy in comparison to other writing streams that we've done, but I feel like I'm just really tired today. I've been up since 1 a.m. and it's now 7 p.m. So if you do the math, I've been up for like 18 hours. So I'm going to go make a quick snacky and get ready for bed. Also, I guess we never cleared out our deaths. What kind of loser am I? I guess that's what I get for not doing that, like, post-stream when we played Slay the Spire last. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Unless I go into work early on Thursday. But we'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what we're going to do. I mentioned Titanfall 2, but I don't know if it'll download in time. Unless I download it tonight. But we may just actually continue writing because I'll have some time to, like, really make sure the violence isn't just violence for violence sake. I have, like, an actual clear-cut, established way how I want it to go down. So it's not just murder spectacle. Because it still needs to be believable. Like, I can't have Dakota lose all his blood in this fight to get saved. And I need it to be somewhat believable where it makes sense that, because we already know what happens, right? Like, we know that Reagan escapes this fight. He doesn't die to Erie. So he has to do something that leads to Erie having to leave him to escape and save Dakota. So, like, we already have that established. So it's not spoilers to say that's what's going to happen. But I want to make sure that it's impactful because I want people to feel like they understand what Erie's powers are, but have no discernible grasp on, like, what she's all capable of doing. Because I want her power to be such an unknowable thing because of what her nature truly is. It's going to feel like, because the idea is, and I think I've shared this before, so I don't know if it's spoilers or not, but if you don't remember, Erie is meant to be my artist's representation of them, herself in this world. And so it's like I asked her what she wanted, and out of all the supernatural things that, like, we talked about, she's like, I want it to be eldritch. So, whereas Reagan's a vampire, Jared's a werewolf, Erie is eldritch. So her powers are meant to be otherworldly in nature. Yeah, I haven't watched. I mean, I've watched some of One Piece, but I could not tell you anything of what it is. But yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be hinted at that she has some otherworldly power, but it's not going to reveal its eldritch in nature till later on, officially. But, like, it's eldritch. If you can't piece it together from some of the context, it's about, like, having the ability to, like, pause time, like freaking straight up Zarwardo, in order to figure out how to do something, and then continue the fight. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you need to, like, pay attention a bit better. But I do want the seeds and hints there to explain that she is of another world entirely in terms of, like, what she can do in comparison to any other supernatural being, because eldritch gods are on such another level when it comes to supernatural stuff. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of it for tonight. If you guys have any suggestions for tomorrow, let me know. But I'm planning on just writing again because I feel like I'll have enough time to, like, not let anger guide how I want the fight to go out. I'll have it where it's more concise. And again, I don't want it to be murder spectacle for the sake of murder spectacle. I want it to be impactful. Like, this is the first time in a fight where Dakota has actually felt terror. And I want that to be shown. I want to, like, make sure that, like, the first part, it's not too bad. It's just him getting, like, pummeled. But then the second part where he makes that little snarky remark about, like, oh, you threw away your humanity just for that. I want it to be like, yeah, and this is what I'm going to do about it to you. Kind of feel. So, with that being said, though, I know you all said thank you for the streamies. I know you guys are all ready ready for me to stop yapping for tonight. But I'm really happy I'm able to do this with you all. So I like sharing this world with you. But yeah, with that, you guys have a good night, and I will see you all later. Do take care, everybody. I mean, I do like yapping, but I also don't. Let me put it this way, big guy. I've been yapping all day. My voice is starting to go out. I'm going to need my voice for tomorrow. So I need to stop talking. But yeah, thank you so much for the words of encouragement there, Soup Dog. Yeah. And I know you're probably waiting for another heist, but too bad, so sad. Have a good night. Bye.